Dr. Jessica Miller hadn't slept in 48 hours, but the trembling in her hands came from excitement rather than exhaustion. The experimental FTL drive hummed behind her, its quantum harmonics filling the cramped cockpit of the Horizon Breaker with a sound unlike anything humanity had ever created. Her life's work, condensed into a device the size of a refrigerator, was about to either make history or add another footnote to humanity's long list of failed attempts to break the light barrier. Final checklist complete, Doctor. The ship's AI, affectionately named Chiral, computational assistance and research liaison, displayed the pre-jump diagnostics across her augmented reality contact lenses, though I feel compelled to remind you that this violates at least 16 safety protocols. She smiled, adjusting her harness. Noted, Carl. And please, for the 100th time, call me Jessica. If we're about to be atomized together, we might as well be on a first-name basis. Atomization is only one of 73 potential catastrophic outcomes I've calculated, Carl replied, his synthetic voice carrying what Jessica swore was a hint of dry humor. Would you like me to list the others? Rain, check on that. Jessica's fingers danced across the holographic controls, initiating the drive's spin-up sequence. Outside the reinforced viewport, Earth hung like a blue marble against the backdrop of space, the International Science Station barely visible as a glinting speck in low orbit. They'd launched from there 6 hours ago, much to the confusion of various space agencies who were still trying to figure out how she'd managed to get launch clearance. She hadn't, of course. Sometimes asking forgiveness was better than asking permission, especially when you were trying to rewrite the laws of physics. Drive reaching critical resonance in 10 seconds, Carl announced. I feel obligated to mention that Dr. Thompson's peer review suggested this particular approach to FTL was, and I quote, the quantum physics equivalent of using a sledgehammer to perform brain surgery. Jessica grinned. Good thing I never was much for peer review. The drive's hum shifted to a deep thrum that vibrated through her bones. Sometimes you need a sledgehammer to break through. The rest of her sentence died in her throat as reality. It cubed. There was no other word for it. One moment, the Horizon Breaker was floating in Earth orbit, and the next, space itself seemed to shatter around them like breaking glass. Jessica's instruments exploded with readings, most of them registering as errors because they simply couldn't process what they were detecting. Carl, are you seeing this? She whispered, watching as what appeared to be ripples of energy cascaded across her view of space, like someone had thrown a stone into a cosmic pond. Affirmative. Though seeing might be an inadequate verb, we appear to have broken something. The ripples intensified, and suddenly the space around their small ship was filled with holes. No, not holes. Windows. Windows into what looked like normal space, except through each one, she could see stars in configurations that didn't match any known star charts. Jessica. Carl's voice had lost all trace of humor. I'm detecting massive energy signatures, multiple objects appearing through the anomalies. She watched, mouth agape, as ships began emerging from the windows in space. Not the clunky practical vessels humanity had built, but sleek, impossibly graceful craft that moved like living things. Dozens at first, then hundreds, surrounding the Horizon Breaker in a display that made Earth's combined space fleet look like a collection of children's toys. Her communication panel lit up with signals unlike anything ever recorded, and Carl's processors nearly overloaded trying to decode them. When he finally spoke, his synthetic voice carried something that sounded remarkably like awe. Jessica, they're saying hello. And they're calling us the isolated ones. I believe we just got humanity's invitation to the galactic community. She laughed, the sound carrying equal parts hysteria and elation. Well, Carl, I guess we did break something after all. Humanity's isolation. Now let's hope we're ready for what comes next. 2 weeks after humanity's dramatic entrance into galactic society, Dr. Jessica Miller found herself wishing she could go back to the simpler days of merely breaking physics. The United Nations General Assembly Hall buzzed with tension as representatives from Earth's nations faced off against the most diverse collection of alien species ever assembled in one room. Standing at the podium, the Xyrath ambassador's translucent tentacles rippled with bioluminescent patterns that the universal translators interpreted as extreme distress. "We cannot adequately express our regret," the creature's melodious voice echoed through the chamber. "The gamma-ray burst approaching your sector will reach Earth in approximately 6 of your months." Major James Cooper, sitting next to Jessica in the observers section, leaned close. "They're lying," he whispered, his special forces training evident in the way his eyes constantly tracked the alien delegates' movements. "Watch the Tyreth's secondary tentacles. They're displaying anxiety patterns completely different from their main ones." Jessica had learned to trust Cooper's instincts since they'd been paired as Earth's military and scientific liaisons to the Galactic Council. "Carl," she subvocalized to her AI companion, now housed in her neural implant, "can you access any unsecured alien data networks?" "Already working on it," Carl replied privately. "Their encryption is advanced, but they never considered defending against an AI that evolved in isolation. Their systems are elegant, but predictable." The assembly erupted into chaos as various world leaders demanded evacuation plans and technological assistance. Through it all, Jessica noticed how the alien representatives kept exchanging those subtle nervous gestures Cooper had pointed out. "Got it," Carl announced in her mind. "Accessing their stellar cartography now. Jessica, it's not just a gamma-ray burst. The entire stellar cluster is destabilizing. The burst is just the precursor to a chain reaction that could sterilize this whole sector of space." Cooper must have noticed her face pale. "What is it, Doc?" Before she could answer, one of the alien observers, a crystalline being that communicated through light pulses, approached their section. Cooper's hand instinctively moved toward his sidearm. "Peace, isolated ones," the crystal being chimed softly. "I am Ax Telvor, chief scientist of the Luminary Collective. We noticed your AI's intrusion into our networks." The being's facets sparkled with what might have been amusement. "Quite impressive. No other species has managed that in 3 millennia. Then maybe you should have been more honest with us from the start," Jessica replied, standing to face the alien. The movement caught the attention of nearby delegates, and a hush fell over their section of the chamber. "We believe your species too. Primitive to handle the full truth," Ax Telvor admitted. "Your civilization achieved faster than light travel mere weeks ago. The psychological impact off." "With all due respect," Cooper interrupted, his voice carrying enough to draw more attention, "you don't know humanity very well." He stood and addressed the nearest translator node. "Point of order to the assembly." The chamber gradually fell silent as Cooper walked to the central floor. Jessica watched with a mix of pride and anxiety as her friend faced down the collected representatives of 1,000 worlds. "The Galactic Council has withheld critical information," he announced. "The threat we face isn't just a gamma-ray burst. Our entire sector of space is about to become uninhabitable. They didn't tell us because they thought we couldn't handle it, because they still think of us as primitives." He paused, his next words carrying the weight of steel. "But here's something they don't understand about humans. We do our best work when backs are against the wall." Jessica stood up. "We don't need evacuation plans," she declared. "We need every piece of data you have about this phenomenon. Humanity didn't survive and evolve in isolation by running from our problems." The Tyreth ambassador's tentacles flashed with patterns of confusion. "You cannot be suggesting even our most advanced civilizations cannot prevent this level of stellar catastrophe." "Watch us," Cooper replied, and Jessica couldn't help but smile at the familiar determination in his voice. "Because you're about to learn why isolation made humanity stronger, not weaker. We never learned what was supposed to be impossible." "You want to do what to Jupiter?" Thomas Mad Tom Anderson's hologram stared at Jessica like she'd just suggested they should have breakfast on the sun. Even through the projection, his wild gray hair and paint-stained lab coat gave him the appearance of a mad scientist, a reputation he gleefully cultivated over the years. Converted into an energy shield, Jessica repeated, pacing her lab aboard the International Science Station. 3 weeks had passed since the revelation at the UN, and she hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night since. Your theories about matter-energy conversion on a planetary scale were dismissed as the ravings of a lunatic, Tom interrupted, his eyes sparkling. I believe the Nobel Committee called them the deranged fantasies of a man who's watched too many science fiction movies. He grinned. When do we start? Cooper, watching from his perch on a lab bench, shook his head. The aliens are going to think we're insane. Good, Tom replied. The best ideas always sound insane at first. That's why I knew I was onto something when they tried to revoke my tenure at Caltech. Carl's voice emanated from the lab speakers. I've run preliminary simulations using Dr. Anderson's equations. While highly unorthodox, the basic principles appear sound. Though I feel compelled to point out that sound in this context might not tear apart the fabric of space-time. Jessica pulled up the holographic model of their proposed Jupiter shield. The gas giant's mass would be converted into a quantum energy barrier, using these focal points as stabilizers. The simulation showed Jupiter slowly transforming into a massive, shimmering wall of pure energy. If we can maintain the field integrity. The lab door hissed open, revealing a delegation of alien scientists led by the crystalline form of Axtelvor. The alien's facets pulsed with what Jessica had learned to recognize as extreme agitation. This is madness, the crystal being chimed. We've been monitoring your communications. You cannot seriously intend to. 2. Their translation matrix seemed to struggle with the concept. Blow up Jupiter, Tom's hologram suggested cheerfully. Transform it into the biggest shield in human history. Save not only Earth but half a dozen alien worlds in the process. That's exactly what we intend to do. Cooper stepped forward, his military bearing a stark contrast to Tom's casual demeanor. Your civilizations have had millions of years to develop safe, predictable solutions. But humanity, we had to learn to think differently, to try the impossible, because sometimes that's all we had. The energy requirements alone. One of the alien scientists began. Are theoretical at best, Jessica finished. But so was FTL travel until we achieved it. So was AI consciousness until Carl evolved. So was every major breakthrough humanity ever made. She gestured to her equations covering the lab's smart glass walls. We don't know if it's possible, but we know what happens if we don't try. Tom's hologram walked through the alien delegation, making them flinch. I've already started retrofitting my company's orbital factories. We can begin construction of the conversion arrays within the week. The council will never approve. Axtelvor started. We're not asking for approval, Cooper interrupted. We're extending an invitation. Stay and help, or step back and watch. Either way, humanity is doing this. Jessica brought up another simulation, this one showing the projected path of the gamma-ray burst and subsequent stellar collapse. According to your own data, evacuation ships can't reach all the threatened worlds in time. Our way might seem crazy, but it's the only chance some of your people have. The alien delegation fell silent, their various sensory organs fixed on the swirling hologram of Jupiter, slowly transforming into humanity's greatest engineering project. Perhaps, Axtelvor finally chimed, their crystalline surface reflecting the simulation's light in mesmerizing patterns. There is something to be said for the perspective of an isolated species, one that never learned to accept impossible odds. That's the spirit. Tom's hologram beamed. Now, who wants to help me violate some fundamental laws of physics? As the alien scientists cautiously began engaging with their equations, Jessica caught Cooper's eye. He nodded slightly, the ghost of a smile on his face. They both knew that the real challenge wasn't convincing the aliens their plan could work, it was making sure it actually did. Because if there was one thing humanity had learned in isolation, It was how to turn desperate gambles into victories. Annie Lightning Thompson barrel-rolled her shuttle through a corridor of quantum fire, the ship's sensors screaming warnings as Jupiter's transforming atmosphere tried to tear the vessel apart. Behind her, 3 alien engineers clutched their restraints, their expressions a universal display of terror across species. Human pilot Thompson, the Metheran engineer, warbled through his breathing apparatus. This flight pattern does not match any known safety protocols. That's because I wrote this one myself. Annie's laugh echoed through the cockpit as she threaded the needle between 2 massive energy conversion arrays. The scene outside was apocalyptic in its grandeur. Great swaths of Jupiter's mass were being transformed into pure energy, creating rivers of light that twisted through the remaining atmosphere. Hold tight, folks. This is where it gets fun. The shuttle's comm crackled. Lightning, this is Control. Dr. Miller needs those calibration readings 5 minutes ago. Cooper's voice carried the strain of someone who hadn't slept in days. Tell the good doctor she can't rush hard. Annie dove the shuttle into a particularly dense energy stream, her augmented reflexes, honed from years of illegal street racing before the Space Force recruited her, allowing her to ride the current like a surfer catching a wave. Her alien passengers made sounds she chose to interpret as appreciation rather than abject horror. The shuttle's sensors gathered vital data about the shield's formation, information that could only be collected by flying directly through the transformation zones. It was insane, reckless, and exactly what humanity needed to pull off this impossible project. Got it, she announced as the shuttle burst through the other side of the energy stream. Uploading now. And you might want to tell Mad Tom his conversion arrays are drifting about 6 degrees off optimal alignment in Sector 7. Back at Control, Jessica pored over the incoming data. The Jupiter Shield project had transformed the space around the gas giant into something resembling a massive construction site. Hundreds of ships darted between enormous energy collectors and conversion arrays, their crews working around the clock to transform theoretical physics into reality. These readings can't be right, one of the alien scientists muttered, his compound eyes narrowing at the displays. The energy conversion rates are exceeding all predicted parameters. That's because your predictions assumed we follow conventional methods. Tom's voice boomed from his permanent hologram presence in Control. But conventional won't save us. Speaking of which, Cooper, we got a problem in the southern hemisphere. Cooper pulled up the relevant feeds. Sabotage, he growled, spotting the telltale signs of deliberately misaligned equipment. Some of our conservative friends must still think we're too primitive to handle this technology. I have identified the probable culprits, Carl announced. 3 ships registered to the preservationist faction departed the work zone 12 minutes ago. Jessica surprised everyone by laughing. Perfect timing, actually. I've been wanting to test my new theory about using controlled feedback loops to enhance the shield's stability. Cooper, can you get me a channel to all ships in the area? Moments later, she addressed the assembled fleet. Attention all workers. We've discovered some modifications to our equipment in the southern hemisphere. Rather than waste time fixing it, we're going to incorporate these changes into a new configuration. All ships proceed to these coordinates. We're about to demonstrate why humans love learning things the hard way. Annie's voice crackled over the comm. Does this mean I get to fly through more impossible spaces? You're the only one crazy enough to do it, Cooper replied, unable to hide his grin. What followed was pure human improvisation at its finest. Over the next 12 hours, Jessica and Tom turned what should have been a catastrophic sabotage into a breakthrough in shield harmonics. The alien engineers watched in amazement as humanity took a potential disaster and transformed it into an advantage through sheer stubborn creativity. I'm beginning to understand. Telvor chimed thoughtfully, watching Annie's shuttle dance through sequences that defied every known flight pattern. Your isolation didn't just make you strong. It made you adaptable in ways we never imagined possible. That's humanity for you, Cooper replied, coordinating another impossible maneuver. We don't just overcome obstacles, We turned them into stepping stones. The public viewing gallery of control had become an impromptu classroom, with screens showing live feeds from the Jupiter Shield project to thousands of online viewers. Dr. Jessica Miller barely noticed the constant stream of questions and comments scrolling past, until one caught her eye. "Hey, Dr. Miller." The teenage voice cut through her concentration. "If the quantum harmonics are giving you trouble, why not try thinking of them like a drum?" Jessica turned to face Kevin Martinez, a 16-year-old robotics prodigy who'd somehow talked his way into the observation area. His school uniform was wrinkled from sleeping in the gallery chairs, but his eyes were sharp with enthusiasm. "What do you mean, Kevin?" she asked, more to humor him than anything else. The quantum harmonics had been giving them headaches for days, threatening to destabilize the entire shield structure. "Well, when I'm building robots, I sometimes get stuck thinking too complicated," Kevin explained, pulling up a simulation on his tablet. "But look, if you think of each energy conversion point like a drumhead, and the shield like one big instrument." Jessica's eyes widened as she watched his crude but ingenious visualization. "Carl, are you seeing this?" "Indeed," the AI responded. "Young Mr. Martinez's musical analogy has interesting implications for the wave function calculations. Running simulations now." Tom's hologram materialized next to them, his wild hair even more disheveled than usual. Did someone just solve our harmonic problems with high school music theory? The screens around them exploded with new data as Carl processed Kevin's insight. The alien scientists present watched in confusion as humans across the globe began riffing on the idea through social media, building on each other's suggestions in real time. "This is unprecedented," Telvor chimed, their crystalline form vibrating with excitement. "Your species is crowdsourcing theoretical physics. Welcome to the human internet." Cooper grinned, watching as memes about quantum drums spread across the networks, where teenage gamers and PhD scientists can collaborate through joke images. Annie's voice crackled over the comm. "Whatever that kid just did, it's working. The energy patterns are stabilizing. It's like Jupiter is singing." The alien observers watched in amazement as humanity turned the solution of complex quantum mechanics into a global participatory event. Memes, jokes, and serious scientific discourse flowed together in a uniquely human way. "I don't understand," one of the alien scientists admitted. "How can you make progress through such chaos?" "Because we're not afraid to look stupid," Kevin replied, still tweaking his simulation. "When you're isolated, you learn to try everything, even the crazy ideas, especially the crazy ideas." Jessica watched as the shield's harmonics aligned themselves according to Kevin's musical principles. "This is brilliant, Kevin. But we still need to account for the temporal distortions in the upper atmosphere." "Oh, that's easy." Kevin pulled up another simulation. "Just think of it like lag compensation in multiplayer games. See if we..." The next few hours became a blur of innovation as humanity's collective creativity was unleashed on the problem. Professional scientists worked alongside amateur enthusiasts. Gamers contributed intuitive solutions to complex physics problems, and social media turned quantum mechanics into the day's hottest trend. "I've never seen anything like this," Tom's hologram declared, watching the cascade of innovations. "We're rewriting physics through memes." "The shield stability has increased by 47%, Carl announced. "Though I feel compelled to point out that several of these solutions technically violate known laws of physics." "Good thing we never learned those laws properly," Cooper quipped, coordinating the implementation of the new protocols. Kevin, now surrounded by both human and alien scientists, continued spinning out ideas. "If we treat the whole shield like one massive multiplayer game environment." Jessica watched the young prodigy work, remembering her own early days of breaking scientific conventions. She caught Telvor's eye analogs and smiled. "This is why isolation made us stronger. We never stopped being curious, never stopped asking, what if? Even our games taught us to think differently." The crystal being's facets flickered thoughtfully. Perhaps we have been isolated too, in our own way. Isolated by our certainty of what is possible and what is not. Well, Jessica gestured to the screens showing humanity's greatest project taking shape. Maybe it's time for everyone to learn a new way to play. The entire control room fell silent as they watched the holographic display. The Jupiter shield, now nearly complete, was developing catastrophic harmonic fluctuations that threatened to tear it apart. 3 weeks remained before the gamma-ray burst would reach them, and their greatest achievement was unraveling before their eyes. Conventional stabilization methods have failed, Carl reported, his usually calm voice carrying an edge of concern. The shield's quantum matrix is experiencing cascade failures across all sectors. I don't understand, Kevin muttered, his games-based algorithms running through simulation after failed simulation. The harmonics were perfect. What changed? The scale, Billy Boom Boom Williams announced, making everyone jump. The retired demolitions expert had been so quiet in his corner that most had forgotten he was there. His scarred hands traced patterns in the air as he studied the hologram. It's like setting off a controlled demolition, kids. Sometimes what works small goes crazy when you scale up. Dr. Miller turned to him, desperation evident in her voice. Billy, if you have an idea, now's the time. The old demolitions expert stood up, his weathered face illuminated by the failing shield's erratic pulses. Back in Kuwait, we had to bring down a burning oil derrick that was too unstable for normal approaches. So we used smaller explosions to counter the structure's oscillation, sort of like fighting fire with fire. Annie's voice crackled over the comm from her position near the shield. Are you suggesting we blow up parts of our trillion-dollar shield to save it? Not exactly. Billy grinned, the same grin that had made commanding officers nervous for 30 years. We create controlled energy detonations at these points. He marked spots on the hologram. Use the shield's own instability against itself, like turning an earthquake into a symphony. The alien scientists erupted in protest. Impossible. Too dangerous. The calculations alone ruled. I can fly it, Annie interrupted. The blast zones would be like hitting moving targets while surfing a tsunami, but I can do it. Mad Tom's hologram flickered with excitement. The math works. It's insane, but it works. We'd need someone to manually place the quantum charges, though. The timing has to be perfect. I'll do it, Billy said quietly. The room fell silent again. I've got more experience than anyone here at dancing with explosions. Cooper stepped forward. It's a suicide mission, Billy, even if Annie gets you to the right spots. Then I'll die doing what I do best, making big things go boom to save lives. Billy's smile took on a softer edge. Been looking for a good last hurrah anyway. Dr. Miller started to protest, but Billy held up a hand. Jessica, honey, I've got terminal cancer. 3 months left, maybe 4. Rather go out saving the world than in some hospital bed. The next hour was a blur of preparation. While alien representatives argued against the primitive and reckless plan, Billy suited up with quantum charges designed to his specifications. Annie ran simulations for the impossibly precise flight paths she'd need to hit. This is madness. Axe Telvor chimed as they watched Billy board Annie's shuttle. The probability of success. Never tell me the odds. Billy called back with a wink. Ruins the fun. What followed was either the most brilliant or most reckless operation in human history. Annie's shuttle danced through electromagnetic storms that would have torn apart any conventionally piloted vessel. Billy, secured to the shuttle's exterior platform, placed charges with the precision of an artist, each detonation timed to the millisecond. Like conducting an orchestra, he commented over the comm, his voice calm even as energy discharges crackled around him. A really big, angry orchestra that's trying to kill you. The alien observers watched in horror and fascination as the humans executed their desperate plan. When the final charge was placed, Billy's voice came through one last time. Light 'em up, kids. Let's show the galaxy how humans dance with destruction. The detonation sequence was beautiful in its complexity. Each explosion set off a chain reaction that, instead of destroying the shield, forced its quantum matrix back into harmony. As the shield stabilized, Annie's shuttle emerged from the final blast wave, its hull scorched but intact. And in the cargo bay, laughing like a madman, Billy Boom Boom Williams proved once again that human ingenuity and pure stubbornness could overcome any odds. "How's that for primitive problem-solving?" he asked the stunned alien observers as he stepped back into control, his suit still smoking. "Sometimes you just need a few well-placed bombs and some good old-fashioned American crazy." Gamma ray burst approaching detection threshold, Carl announced, his voice echoing through the tensely quiet control room. After months of impossible work, the moment of truth had arrived. Dr. Jessica Miller stared at the readings, her tired eyes reflecting the holographic displays. The Jupiter shield hummed with power, its quantum matrix now stable thanks to Billy's explosive orchestration. But something in the numbers caught her attention. "There's more," she whispered, then louder. "Carl, run a projection of the shield's coverage area." The AI complied, and a new hologram materialized, showing not just Earth but several nearby star systems. "The shield's protective field extends far beyond our initial calculations," Carl confirmed. "It will protect not only Earth, but also 3 inhabited alien worlds in adjacent systems. And it might kill Earth in the process," Cooper added grimly, pointing to another set of readings. "The power requirements to extend that far. We have to divert almost all the shield's energy away from Earth's sector." The alien representatives burst into frantic discussion. 3 of their worlds, previously considered doomed, now had a chance at survival, at the potential cost of humanity's homeworld. "How long do we have to decide?" Annie asked from her shuttle, stationed near one of the shield's primary control nodes. 17 minutes until the burst reaches the shield's outer perimeter," Kevin replied, his young face drawn with worry as he ran calculations on his tablet. Mad Tom's hologram flickered thoughtfully. "If we reconfigure the shield to protect just Earth, our chances of survival increase to nearly 98%. If we try to save everyone." He paused. "Maybe 50-50. Axtel Vor stepped forward, their crystalline form pulsing with solemn colors. "We cannot ask humanity to take such a risk. Your species has already done more than." "We're doing it," Jessica interrupted, her voice firm. The room fell silent. "Doc," Cooper started, but she held up a hand. "Humanity didn't evolve in isolation, just to save ourselves," she continued. "We developed differently because we had to face every challenge alone. That taught us something precious, the value of taking risks for others." Billy chuckled from his chair, still recovering from his explosive adventure. "Besides, 50-50 odds. I've pulled off crazier stunts with worse chances. But we'll need to modify the shield geometry," Kevin pointed out. "The energy distribution has to be perfect, or nobody survives." "I can do it," Annie's voice crackled over the comm. "But I'll have to fly manual adjustments through the worst of the quantum storms. The automated systems aren't fast enough." Cooper looked at Jessica. "It's your call, Doc. You started this crazy project." Jessica took a deep breath, looking around the room. She saw Kevin's determination, Billy's confident grin, Tom's excited hologram, and the alien observer's mix of hope and fear. In that moment, she understood why humanity's isolation had been a gift. "Annie, get ready to fly," she ordered. "Kevin, upload your latest algorithms to her neural interface. Billy, I need your demolition expertise for emergency stabilization if things go wrong. Tom, prepare the shield for full geometric reconfiguration. Cooper, keep us all from doing anything too crazy." "Too late for that." Cooper smiled, already coordinating the teams. The next 15 minutes were a symphony of human ingenuity and determination. Annie's shuttle wove through impossible spaces, manually adjusting quantum fields. Kevin's algorithms, refined through countless gaming scenarios, predicted and compensated for energy fluctuations. Billy's expertise helped them identify critical nodes for emergency stabilization. As the gamma ray burst approached, humanity watched their greatest creation tested. The shield hummed with power, its geometric pattern now resembling a massive web of light connecting Earth to the alien worlds they'd chosen to protect. Impact in 5, Carl announced. 4, 3, 2, 1. The burst struck the shield like a cosmic hammer, energy levels spiking beyond any safe parameters. For a terrifying moment, everything hung in the balance. Then Annie's voice, strained but triumphant. "Field is holding. We did it." The shield didn't just hold. It transformed the burst's energy, redirecting and converting it into sustainable power for all the protected worlds. As readings confirmed their success, the control room erupted in celebration. "Impossible," one of the alien scientists muttered. The energy conversion rates, the geometric configuration, it all violated known physics. "Good thing we never learned those rules," Jessica smiled, watching Earth's first sunrise under their new protective field. Sometimes isolation teaches you to write your own. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council had never been so crowded. Representatives from thousands of worlds gathered to witness an unprecedented event: the reclassification of humanity's technological status. 1 month after the Jupiter Shield's success, the galaxy was still trying to understand exactly what humanity had accomplished. Dr. Jessica Miller stood beside Cooper, both wearing formal dress uniforms that still felt strangely stiff. Annie lounged nearby, somehow making her own uniform look rakish, while Billy sat in his wheelchair, his medals gleaming under the chamber's crystalline lights. Tom's hologram flickered beside them, having refused to attend in boring formal wear. But it was Kevin Martinez, the teenage prodigy, who approached the central podium. The council had specifically requested that humanity's youngest contributor deliver their address. "Distinguished members of the council," Kevin began, his voice steady despite his obvious nervousness. "You asked me to explain how an isolated species managed to achieve what your combined civilizations thought impossible. The answer is simple. We never stopped being children." A murmur ran through the alien delegates as Carl translated the statement into hundreds of languages simultaneously. "In isolation, every human is born into a world of impossible questions," Kevin continued. "We don't start with answers. We start with wonder. Every child looks up at the stars and asks why and how and what if. Without other civilizations to tell us our dreams were impossible, we kept dreaming them." He gestured to his teammates. Dr. Miller broke the light barrier because she never accepted it was unbreakable. Major Cooper saw patterns others missed because he wasn't trained to ignore them. Annie flew impossible paths because no one told her they were impossible. Billy turned destruction into creation because he never learned the proper ways to fail. And Mr. Anderson, he smiled at Tom's hologram. He was considered mad precisely because he thought like every human child, asking why not instead of why. The chamber was silent now, every being present captured by the young human's words. "The Jupiter shield works because it breaks every rule you knew about physics. It succeeded because we combined a soldier's strategy, a racer's instincts, a demolition expert's timing, a mad scientist's theories, and yes, a gamer's understanding of complex systems. But most importantly, it worked because we never learned to stop believing in impossible things." Axtelvor floated forward, their crystalline form radiating formal colors. "The Council recognizes that humanity's achievement goes beyond mere technology. We propose a new classification, Innovation Class Civilization, a society capable of advancing not through accumulation of knowledge, but through the ability to perceive what others cannot." With respect, Jessica stepped forward. "We'd like to propose a modification to that classification." She nodded to Carl, who projected a new hologram in the chamber center. It showed the Jupiter shield, but now revealed something the aliens hadn't noticed. Its geometry was designed to be expanded, to protect even more worlds. We propose the classification, synthesis civilization, Jessica announced, because humanity's gift isn't just innovation. It's the ability to combine the knowledge of the galaxy with the dreams of children, to take the impossible and make it inevitable. The council chambers erupted in discussion as aliens began to understand the implications. The shield wasn't just a defensive measure. It was a prototype for a new way of approaching galactic civilization itself. We've already received requests from 17 worlds for human consultation on their scientific projects. Cooper added with a smile. Apparently, our primitive approaches are in high demand. And I've got a waiting list of alien pilots wanting to learn impossible flight patterns. Annie grinned. Don't forget the explosion enthusiasts, Billy chuckled. Turns out controlled demolition is an art form in 6 star systems. As the council formally adopted the new classification, Kevin turned to his teammates. So what's next? What other impossible things should we try? Tom's hologram flickered with mischievous energy. Well, I have this crazy theory about dimensional folding. Jessica laughed, watching the aliens' mixture of excitement and terror at humanity's newest impossible dream. They had earned their place among the stars not by following the path of other civilizations, but by blazing their own trail. And now, with the combined knowledge of the galaxy and humanity's unique perspective, the impossible was just the beginning. Let them call us crazy, she said, looking out at the vast chamber of alien races now eager to learn humanity's secrets. After all, every great achievement in human history started with someone asking, wouldn't it be crazy if?